All right, hey everybody. How's it going? Hope you guys are doing well. My name is Ben, but you can feel free to call me Ben or Follygon. This is gonna be my second stream here on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. Let me know if you guys can hear me down in the chat. Looks like my levels seem to be working, but if the music's too loud or anything, I can go ahead and turn that down. Just let me know. Let's set up our stream source here. So yeah, if you guys haven't already, check out the Pixelogic. Wherever you guys are, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you guys are watching, make sure you click that follow button. And if you guys are interested in checking out some of my stuff, you guys can always check out my YouTube channel. There's a link up here. You can't click it, but that is the correct URL that you need to go to. Or you can just Google Follygon, and I am sure you will find it. Hello, everybody. Welcome. People are kind of popping in here. Give some time for some more people to pop in before we jump right into the sculpt. But yeah, check out my YouTube channel if you're interested in more of my stuff. If you're interested in some tutorials or anything like that, I have a bunch of free stuff on here, as well as my Gumroad. I have some paid content on there that I put a ton more work into than I would do on something like a stream or any of the free tutorial content that I put on my YouTube. I also offer one-on-one mentorship if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, other than that, Alex, hey. Dr. Depressa, what's going on? All from the ZBrush Discord. How's it going, guys? Let's take a look here at ZBrush really quick. So, this is our good old Goobert, good old goofy boy here that we're going to be working on for our stream. This concept that I have right here is by @VerticalDraws or Maddie C on Twitter. So definitely go give them a follow if you want to check out some of their work. They got some really cool stuff. Here's the actual concept here. We actually have two different images. I'm not using this one though. I'm mainly just going off of a single concept image. Donna, how you doing? Welcome everybody. Everybody's starting to come on in. Looks so sweet. Thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, I think that's everything, guys. I think I have everything here set up in ZBrush. Let me just make sure that the stream's looking good before we do anything else. Cool, all right. I think we're all set up. So yeah, @VerticalDraws on Twitter, this awesome concept. If you guys missed the first video, it's here on the Pixelogic channel. You guys can go check that out. I pretty much just sculpted the character's head here for our Gooby boy. And then on my YouTube channel, just yesterday I did a little extra work streaming this live. So if you want to see the entire process, you can go check out part 2 on my YouTube channel. We did some of the clothing here, the legs, their pants, shirt, and we're going to be working on some of this stuff a little bit more during the stream. Also some of these interesting kind of low poly pieces that you could typically do with Extract. We did them in a little bit of a different way. And if you guys have any questions about any of that, any of this process, or anything else that I'm doing here, feel free to put that in the chat. Other than that, I think we're cool to go ahead and get started. Doing good? Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to the stream. Again, my name is Ben or Follygon, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Call me Hey You for all I care. So by the end of this, I would like to start getting into some asymmetry. And we've kind of already started to do that with the pants that you can see here. But more so than that, kind of getting into the face. I have a list here of a few things that I want to tackle in my notes. I want to increase the size of the head because it's looking a little bit small. Obviously sculpt the shoe, do some stuff with some seams, sleeves, folds, all that good stuff. And I think we'll start by the head size change. That's going to be really quick and easy. I want to get in here and finish this fold that I started doing because we're kind of tackling it in a pretty interesting way. And for those of you that missed my first stream working on this character, I think it'll be pretty interesting. And I need to do it anyway. I need to sculpt it. All right. Rama Rizuki. I don't know if I said that correctly, but welcome to the stream. So, we are, I've already kind of blocked out this form here. We're looking at this fold happening on the shirt right here. Let me grab a drink of water before my throat exhausts itself. So this fold, and then you could sculpt this up by hand, all on one mesh, which is absolutely fine. I do that quite often as well. Instead, for this character though, I'm tackling some of this in a little bit of a different approach. And if you guys saw the first one in the series again, it's the same strategy for how we sculpted this hat shape up here. So we have inserted a tube of geometry on top of our shirt. And if you guys don't know how to do that, you can just grab any kind of curve tube brush or curve brush in here in ZBrush. The curved tube snap brush is specifically what I used. And then you can come onto your subtool here. Let's see, we'll just do this, something like that. And then draw out your tube of geometry. And I've done some special things to make the curve a specific way to increase its thickness in certain areas. So you can see my curve settings that I modified down here. But really simple, just throw that on there. And now I'm gonna start manipulating this piece of geometry as well as my shirt and start to form this up. So I'm gonna turn off symmetry on my shirt and start to sculpt asymmetrically. So let's turn on transparency and ghost mode and get in here with our damn standard brush. That damn standard brush, right? We can just start essentially getting the surface to turn a little bit up top. So we're starting to get some of this shadowing happening here. And you can push that in however you want using a number of different brushes. And with that, I'm gonna have to add some additional geometry on top here. And I'm gonna smooth all of this out. But essentially the basic form that I'm attempting to get at first, just to get that nice shadow in there, start to get that transitioning, getting this billowing effect here in the cloth between these two shapes. Even though they are separate currently, that's only temporary. We will be merging them together. We're starting to get some of that to take place already. So now we can grab our tube of geometry and start manipulating this. I like to use the back face masking on the move brush quite often. That's in your brush auto masking palette. And then you can come through and start to only tweak one side of this mesh at a time, like so. That's looking pretty good already. This is low poly right now. I just have dynamic, well, let's scroll down. I just have dynamic turned on, so that's showing that as what it would look like if it were smoothed with 2 subdivision levels added, which is the default setting there. And I will be subdividing this right now actually so that I can start to manipulate this a little bit more and add to the form here. Bonjour, Didier. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. Welcome everybody. Looks like a lot more people are starting to come in now. So welcome guys, welcome. I'm gonna use my inflate brush to get a little bit of this convex surface on the outside of this mesh. You could also use your standard brush for this. I like to, if I'm gonna do something like this, I like to make the brush really big and use either a really low Z intensity or just very lightly press with my pen so that I'm not essentially, I'll crank it up really quick, getting something like that. That's just way more than what we are looking for. This needs to be something that's rather subtle. Just enough that we can start, again, getting that convex surface on the outside. And once we're happy with both of these shapes, we can Dynamesh and merge these together. And we can even use polygroups to our advantage in that, which we definitely will be doing. And the objective of what I'm doing here, even though I'm gonna be merging these together. I'm just trying to keep these pretty clean right now. Looking at my surface, if it's really hard to see stuff like right through here, we're getting some pretty dark shadows. If it's hard to see that kind of stuff for you, just turn off your material, turn off your poly paint, and switch to either the basic material or whatever your normal sculpting material that you use is. And it's a little bit easier to see some of these areas. So we can see that we need to either smooth this out or add in some additional form throughout this, this area right here. Maybe cut in some more through here and just start to help that transition a little bit better than what we had. I think that's looking all right back there. Something like that should do fine. Again, only switch. I recommend that you switch your materials as often as you can. It just helps a lot, but I like to work with poly paint just because it's an extra layer of aiding my eye and being able to see, you know, what's right or wrong with my sculpt. Color just helps a lot. At least personally, it helps me a lot in that area. So now I'm just cleaning up some of that form and seeing how this is playing out. I would like to now start to push this in, line it up a little bit better, and then pull out probably the main subtool for the shirt there. And again, we're going to be adding more asymmetry as we go. This is kind of just one of those early steps. We've done some stuff in the pants already. Now we're just kind of looking at the shirt, trying to actually sculpt some cloth here, some folds. Nice video, thank you. Side effects, how's it going? Allie, hello. Welcome to the stream, guys. MZ says, if you didn't have your Cintiq 27, would you get that or the 24? I don't know. I like this one. If I didn't have to have a Cintiq though, I would just get an Intuos Pro. An Intuos, I think they're on the 4 right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with an Intuos tablet. I know plenty of people that like them a lot more. And again, this is, you know, this is just a tool, guys. This isn't going to help you sculpt better. If anything, it's just for convenience. It's not like it's more powerful than an Intuos. But some people really like the one-to-one interaction that you get. I personally do as well, hence why I have one. I kind of like the feeling of just being able to kind of manipulate my sculpt with my pen. With an Intuos, you don't exactly get the same interaction, same feeling, but I've been using, I think I've been using an Intuos. Yeah, I've been using an Intuos longer prior to using graphics tablets. Before this, I had a 13-inch Cintiq, so before I upgraded to this one. Just a matter of preference, but yeah, I like this tablet a lot. Alright, so now start to pull out around the torso, around this fold that we've kind of created with our tube of geo. And I'm gonna have to cut in a little bit more strongly there. The transition here isn't quite what we want it to be, so let's just let's do something really strong. Going back to that damn standard brush. I'm using transparent with ghost on, and when you have ghost mode on, it allows you to sculpt through your other geometry. If you don't have that turned on, you won't be able to do that. So for the most part, that's pretty much, I pretty much always use ghost unless I'm just using transparent to visually see what's happening to my sculpt underneath. But if I'm actually trying to sculpt, yes, always ghost mode. Starting to get that fold. I think this is looking a little bit too thick in some of this area. proportionally. If we're zooming out here, let's look at this. Start to transition this better. So again, looking at that shadow. I don't know, maybe this isn't too thick. I'm actually kind of fine with that for now. We can make more changes if need be. So from here, what we would want to do is take this geometry and merge it together and use some techniques with polygrouping to make this be able to retain its form a little bit better and just make manipulating of the surface a lot easier on us. So let's try that now. So we have our shirt here. I'm just gonna delete subdivision levels and merge down. Now, when I merge these down, you can see that we have two polygroups here. If I were to Dynamesh these right now, I would lose my polygroups because I have polypaint data assigned. So I'm just gonna turn that off for the time being. And we will, actually, let me sample that color. And we'll toggle that off, and we will now Dynamesh. Let's go a little bit higher res than that. Try 200 and go from there. That looks fine. It's a little high, but I'm fine with that. So now from here, we have our two polygroups, and what we want to do is first I'm just going to Z-remesh these and try something around like 2K with keep groups on. See what that gives us and see how that looks. So our objective is to get the topology to flow along this seam that we've created between these two pieces of geometry. And with that, it's going to allow us to create some overlap in these areas, kind of similar to what we've already done, but we'll be able to smooth out some of the connection points and play around with this even more. So we got some weird stuff going on there. But for the most part, that looks pretty close to what I want. To clean this up, I see what's going on here. Okay. Let's try to clean up our polygroups that we have here. So we can simplify the Z-remesh that we get out of this. I'm just going to select all of this. Select that. Actually, let me hide that. I'm doing all this selection garbage just so I can hide all this and then polygroup it all as one piece. And we'll get in here and just bloop, 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 kill all that. Oops. There is one floating vert that we're getting there. That's fine, I think. So I just want this polygroup, and this, and that, and that. Get rid of all the floaters. Polygroup that, polygroup this. Now this Z-remesh should turn out a little bit better. We'll also lower the count here and run a quick save just so if something crashes, we don't lose anything. Jenny, welcome to the stream. Real quick, guys, I am going to go turn on my air conditioning because it's like 1,000,000,000 degrees in here. So while that's running, I'll be right back. This will take 2 seconds. All right. Z-remesh isn't even done yet. Perfect timing. Look at that. Cool. So now I don't have to overheat and die. We still have some weird areas going on here with the pinching. It's creating some new poly groups. It's not exactly what we want, but this seam is looking pretty good. And I'm gonna call that, I don't know. Let's try one more kind of clean up here. See what it does. See if it plays nice. And it's gonna start destroying the form. So let's just leave it here and start to manipulate this and work from here. So I'm just gonna add a few subdivisions, start smoothing this out here. Obviously we don't want this super sharp transition. As the fold comes to this area that's a lot looser, it's gonna start to fade out. So we wanna sculpt that out. And then the part that we want to worry about is using our poly groups by just control clicking on your surface with either your transpose tool or your 3D gizmo. Create that mask, and then you can get in here and maybe soften that a little bit. We'll just go one direction with that. That's starting to pull out on the bottom. It's fine. And now we can start to create a little bit of some overlap in this area. And play with creating at least a really strong fold at first. And because we have a nice mask there, it's really easy for us to just sculpt in one area without modifying the bottom. And then if I want to sculpt on here, of course, I can go back through there and do the exact same thing. But for these areas, this is just where I need to transition the form out. And it's really dirty geo, but we can do some stuff to clean that up later. Our main goal here is, though, just looking at this area. Alright, so let's reapply our color and our material and we'll just turn on everything else here so we can start to see how things are looking all together and start to manipulate this a little bit more. So I'm going through with my smooth brush at a really high subdivision level. It's going to allow me to essentially just barely smooth out that crease, just a little bit. And then I can come through with some other brushes if I want to make this a little bit deeper here. Whoops, we'll turn on lazy mouse. Maybe even toggle off that mask temporarily. This is my sharp soft edge brush. It's pretty similar to the damn standard brush. It's just not quite as sharp, hence the sharp soft brush title. So a little bit softer. It allows me to play with that form a little bit more there without, I'll show you the difference here, the damn standard. You get this nice sharp line, which is good for a lot of things, but with this, it's pretty low res. So maybe let's stroke here and here. So damn standard, sharp soft edge. Still a slightly different interaction, but you can get some cool effects with it. Amit, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. And everybody else that's joining us. Hello everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Alright, so I'm going to be jumping around a lot. Let's go ahead and leave this fold as is for the time being, and we will come back to it. But one thing I really wanted to do during our stream was sculpt our shoe, because we don't have a shoe yet, and the rest of this guy isn't going anywhere. Well, he's not going to go anywhere without any feet, so... Kira, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Hope you guys are doing good. Let's look at this shoe. And by the way, while I'm talking here, don't feel like you have to wait for me to get to a specific area or do anything specific to ask a certain question. If you don't you don't ask any questions, I'm just going to talk forever, or talk to myself forever, and nobody wants to see that happen. Okay, so for this shoe, let's sample that color, see what that's looking like. We can hide the rest of this character probably while we just work on the shoe. And I will actually move that shoe back to the central axis. I have it off to the side here. So the way I'm going to recenter this, it's actually going to change its size as well, which is fine. There's a few ways you can do this, but I'm just going to do this very quickly by pressing Unify in my deformation palette, and that's actually going to move it into the middle of the head. It puts it at the 0, 0, 0 position here in your 3D space. It also tries to put it at about 2 units in its max dimension, so you can see that as well. So now from there, I'll just slide this down, and I'll scale it up some. But now we have it back on the x-axis, and we can start working on this. How do you retopo it? That's a long answer. If you want to do something quick with auto retopology, you can use something like ZRemesher, which is something that I used. It's down in your geometry palette. It's how I created some low resolution topology here. And I even used the keep groups function so that we could create a nice, good flow there between those two polygroups. But in terms of manual retopology, that would be a lesson and a stream in and of itself. So let's grab our geometry block here down for the shoe. We're working with a low resolution piece. I created this with just the initialize palette at the bottom of the tool menu there. How do we want to do this? I think we're going to start by making the ends wider. So I want this to taper out. I want it to be wider at the tip of the shoe and kind of taper back to the heel. Not quite like what I have now. So we're going to manipulate some of this geometry in an attempt to get this rounded shape here. So let's grab just more of these points and more of these. And I'm just sliding these around manually here with my transpose tool. That's looking a lot closer. There's a few more things I think we can do here though. We'll also grab that back vert, round out the heel. So we're just looking at this from the top down view right now. I have some creases set up so it's flat on the bottom. And now, let's see. I'll probably add in an extra edge loop, but we can start manipulating these verts as well to add some roundness to the top of the shoe, which is going to be useful. I have X symmetry turned on, so that's going to make it so I can't leave that central axis point there. Let's add another edge loop here using the Z modeler brush with insert polyloop, polyloop. Turn off symmetry while we do this as well, because we don't want ZBrush to crash on us. And now from here we can manipulate that point some more. I think we could do another edge loop as well. Whoops. Turn off symmetry, try not to delete stuff like I just did, and play with the rounding that out some more. So I think that's looking closer and closer. One of these edges is probably going to have to be either tapered in or deleted so that we're not getting such a thick or sharp transition from the edge of the shoe up into this rounded plane here. Unless we wanted to use that, of course, for the sole of the shoe, which I don't think I do. At least not yet. So let's go in with our Z modeler brush and just delete this edge loop and see what happens. So that'll start rounding that out a lot faster. So I'll undo and redo so you can see what that looks like. That difference, a little bit sharp, a little more rounded now. Then of course we can edit these vertices if we want to get a very specific look. I think the shoe's a lot more rounded than what I have right now. So pull these out, start to round that even more. Grab these vertices, move those. And remember, I'm using dynamic subdivs. It's just the hotkey of the D key on your keyboard, so you can see what that looks like when it is smooth with subdivs. It's not actually subdivided though. And we can probably get some more volume here, here. A little bit more so in the back. And I'll just kind of continue to sit here and tweak these manually with my move brush. For the back heel, I want this to be a little bit tighter, I think, than what I have right now. So pull that in, pull that in. And that's looking much closer to the initial shape that we're gonna be working off of. We are getting some really hard, weird points right there, and that's because we have some creases on the bottom that we don't want. So I'm just gonna use my Z Modeler brush to uncrease those two edges. And there we go, that fixes that. And we got a good start for a shoe. We can keep working on this. Blaze, Blaze, I love your name. Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello everybody. A bunch more people that are popping in. If you are new here, my name is Ben, or you can call me Follygon. Either works. We're working on good old Goobert here for the people that have not seen the full character. We're going to be getting into some asymmetry. Right now we're working on the shoe, but once we're done with that, I think we'll probably look some more at some additional folds, probably in the sleeve, the shirt, and back here on the pant leg. That's another one of the areas that I wanted to take a look at. And then we'll probably get into some asym, or some more asym than what we have currently. Let's see here, guys. So for the sole of the shoe, looking here, I want to make sure that this shape is exactly how I want it before I do the sole of the shoe, because I want that to, I'm going to create the sole of the shoe from this geometry here. So let's line up our shoe with our pants. We're going to have to turn off symmetry to do this, which is fine. And we can start looking at scale and shape. Obviously the shapes here are different between these two shoes. I'm going to do this one first, just because this one has more of a drastic 90-degree turn in it. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to manipulate this shoe and then duplicate it over to the other side and start making those bigger changes. We have a pretty big swoop going on here, so we can think about getting that in. That's pretty strong. It's a pretty strong swoop. And the roundness here, I'm trying to capture this. This is like more of just a, it looks like a hot dog. Honestly, this shoe looks like a hot dog on this side. So I'm trying to avoid the hot dog look, but I'm going to try to make both of these shoes feel like they're the same, even though they're in these two very different poses. Shoe is probably a little bit too thick as well. Try to squish that some. Let's see. Is there a list of gear you are using? Yes, if you go to my website, Follygon.com, in the top right-hand corner of the menu, very top right, it should say gear, and that's all the stuff that I use for sculpting here. That is Follygon.com. Or you can just Google Follygon or my name, and you should probably find it. Alright, let's make this a little bit more narrow. So I'm working with perspective on, but when I'm working on something geometric, I typically like to get a little bit more planar by turning off perspective so I can see my orthographic views a little bit better. But then to make sure that everything is proportionally looking good, I'll toggle that on and off quite a few times. So I'm looking at how this is lining up, the shoe with the shirt. So I need to increase the size of my shoe even more, is what that is telling me. Whoops, accidentally opened our help palette at the bottom. So that's looking a lot closer. I think a little bit more skew, a little bit more banana curve back. So our hot dog shoe can line up a little bit better. Then I think we'll be good to add maybe a sole. And then go from there. Probably immediately jump over to the other shoe. Cheers from France and really nice work. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Jacob said, found it, found the gear. Awesome. Guys, what do you think of this hot dog? Actually, I wouldn't pass the good old goofster to not put a hot dog on his foot. So, in all actuality, this one might be a hot dog. I don't know. I want to be careful here. Let's rotate like this. And then tilt back. That's some nasty curve, goof. Leg might be a little long. Let me see here. Yeah, let's make that leg a little bit shorter. Let's just grab a straight transpose line and move our shoe. It's not much shorter. Just want to get that feeling a little bit better. Something like that, maybe. That might be too much. I can't tell yet. My pant leg is a little bit too thick here at the bottom as well, so that'll have to be just tapered in using my scale modifier here on the transpose line. Turn perspective back on, line these up a little bit. Like I said, the head needs to get bigger. We could have probably done that first, but I was thinking about waiting till we got to asim in the face. Make that change once we go into transpose master, but I think, yeah, if anything, I made it a little bit too short. Should not be a huge problem though, and it's really easy to fix. Once we get more stuff in here, it'll be easier to tell that kind of stuff as well. So for the sole of the shoe, we'll do that next. This hot dog is fantastic. Guys, hello, welcome to my hot dog sculpting stream, where I will be making a hot dog shoe. I swear this. If I put mustard and ketchup on this shoe from this angle, hot dog. Evil Carnage, welcome to the stream. Alright. So I'll spend 5 seconds here and just line up my pant leg. Nothing fancy. And we'll line up the shoe, I guess, a little bit better as well. And I'll adjust that pant leg more later, especially after I add in that seam there. Kind of looks like the pants are rolled up on themselves. That's kind of the read that I'm getting there. I don't know what else that could be on jeans, especially bell bottoms, which Goofy seems to be wearing. So how do we create the sole of a shoe? How do we do that, guys? Well, there's only a billion different ways to do every single thing in ZBrush. So the way I'm gonna do this is duplicate my hot dog shoe here, polygroup everything by pressing Ctrl W, grabbing my Z modeler brush, and just holding the Alt key and painting these faces. And then from there, I'm going to run an extrude single poly function. And voila, we have the beginnings of a sole. But we're gonna have to make it wider. So the way we'll do that is use extrude poly loop. Make sure that orange line's showing up. Extrude out. And voila, our hot dog shoe is coming together. Got a nice old sole. And the great news is we're still low poly, so this stuff is really easy to manipulate here in ZBrush. I like using the Z modeler brush a lot for this kind of stuff. This makes this look a lot thicker than what I've done it here. It looks really thin up top, and then it like gets thicker towards the back. It's like Goofy's got some heels on. I'm trying to think. In actual shoes, they do tend to get a little bit thicker towards the back section here. So instead of adding additional edge loops or anything, I'll just mask it off and rotate out from this point. And it gets a little bit thicker there. I think that's pretty close to what I want. And then using move, I'll kind of grow it back a little bit. And now from here, I want to delete. I don't have to do this, but I want this to be separate geometry. So I can delete this geometry up top, and then close holes manually with the Z modeler brush. You could also try using the Q mesh brush. Sometimes this is effective at removing polygons. But I think, let's try this first. Let's just delete hidden. I want to see what's going on here. And how are we going to do this? Let's try bridge edges. Bridge something like that. Insert a poly loop here. And I'll probably do the same thing up here as well. So bridge, bridge. And I'm gonna, guys, you're gonna love this. I'm gonna put, holy crap, come on. I'm gonna put some triangles in my mesh. Gasp, I know. Oh, I see the way that's flowing. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe I could. Let me use my big dumb brain for a moment. Let's see. There we go. Wow, quads. I don't have to make this quads. I don't care if there are tries in it. It doesn't matter. But this works just as well. So for this, I'll need to move this. I did this wrong down here. Just delete them. So I need to bridge. Whoops. If you guys aren't experienced with the Z modeler tool, you might not want to do this kind of work. This kind of... Oh, come on. This box modeling stuff in ZBrush. I don't like to leave ZBrush for... Let's see. Insert polyloop. I like to stay in ZBrush for most of the stuff that I do, so if I can do it in here, I will. On some of this stuff, it can just be a little finicky for these smaller areas. You can also, if you're having trouble selecting a specific thing, what you can do is hover over a face and then hold spacebar and click do nothing. So now when you click on a face, it doesn't do an accidental operation, and then you can just sit here and bridge your edges a little bit easier, maybe. There we go. Bridge, bridge. Okay, cool. So the reason I didn't close holes automatically on this was because I can show you really quick, but essentially we get a whole mess of geometry. I wanted something really clean, and I also wanted something that was separate, so I could add maybe a separate material to this if I wanted to, you know, export this out and throw it in Keyshot really fast, or if I want to just throw a huge blockout color on here without worrying about low res topology playing a factor in that. So this just makes it a little bit cleaner, keeping that separate. I think I'll add a little bit more rotation up here. It's starting to look a little flat. And cool, I think we're good. And if I wanted to use symmetry on this, I could have used symmetry while I was closing holes. Even though it's not on the symmetrical axis, I could have turned on local sim, and now I can manipulate this as if it were on a symmetrical axis. It's just that when using Z modeler, local symmetry tends to be a little sketchy. You can end up crashing on certain operations. So it's best to just kind of play it a little safe and do the extra couple close holes or bridge edge operations just a little bit safer. A little bit. Never used box modeling. I prefer sculpting. Yeah, but it'd be pretty hard to sculpt something this clean like what we have here for our shoe. It'd take quite a while. There's definitely some, the way before ZModeler was in here, I would probably use my slice curve brush and start slicing different shapes in here. That's how I would probably do something like that in the past if I didn't have ZModeler. But yeah, it's a great tool to learn. You can do some really cool stuff with it. Hello, Dante and Angelis. Welcome to the stream, guys. That is lit. I don't know if I've ever done anything that I would consider lit until today. So now I've made it. I can die happy. I'm cool. I am lit. So let's get this gap in here. The way we're gonna do this, that dog is going cray out there. But the way we're gonna do this is with a live boolean. If you guys are familiar with a live boolean, if not, well, you're about to be. So let's duplicate our mesh. How do I want to do this? I'm gonna insert a multi-mesh primitive perfect cube. You guys don't have the perfect cube. What the perfect cube is, if you go down into your initialize palette and click on cube, you will get a cube of geometry in whatever resolution you specify here. So a perfect cube would just be a six-sided polygon, six-sided cube, which is what I'm using to insert right here. And I am going to use this mesh now to create a subtraction. Ooh, got a gnat here flying around. So we're going to subtract our sole, or at least a part of the sole of our shoe. And the way you do that is you click this little icon here. This is the subtractive icon, and then you click Live Boolean, turn off polyframe, and voila! Now you can make that subtractive, and it deletes part of that geometry. I don't want it affecting the top portion of the shoe though, so I'll just move that down below here and then rotate my camera, and it will update that accordingly. And I will kill this gnat if I have the opportunity. From there, let's see, I guess we need to move it a little bit, huh? So down a little bit, rotate that way. We want an edge loop in the middle, so I'm just going to run a mirror and weld operation. And because local symmetry is on, that's just going to put an edge loop in the middle. It's just a really quick way of me doing that. And then from there, I'm going to need to crease some edges. So let's manually crease some edges here. I want the flat to be bottom, top to be rounded. Almost. I don't... Oh, I got it! I did get it! That's gross. Ugh. But I killed the gnat. Now that was epic. Or wait, what is it now? Now this is epic? I shouldn't try to meme live. Alright, so let's push this edge loop up. And now we can start to get that rounded edge in there. And we'll shift everything down, shrinking that gap a little bit. And the bottom of our shoe here should be the same color as our sole. We can do that later, that's not a huge issue. But I will make this the same color as my sole. So wherever you're subtracting your geometry, it'll also apply that color there. So we'll just fill it in the same color. Make sure it's the same. There's like a little bit of a gap in there. I think it's fine. We'll just maybe scoot it back ever so slightly. That's fine. Cool. Alright, so we got that subtraction in there. I might want to manipulate this a little bit more with a really big move brush or something like that. It's kind of, I don't know what's going on here. It's like tucked up under here. I don't know. I think I'll manipulate that later to get that shape, our hot dog, as it looks. We only have one view here, though, so we got to work with what we got. That definitely is extending past the heel, and it is doing the same thing a little bit back there. I'm trying to think of the read that I'm getting here and how I can get that. I would like to add in an extra vert here. Instead, let's subdivide once, and that'll actually give me an edge loop here, but retain my form. And maybe I can do something with growing this out beyond that. Let's delete lower. There we go. Now we're starting to get that kind of hot dog shape back. So by deleting that lower subdiv, I'm able to use dynamic again and just kind of pre-visualize what that looks like while still being able to use my ZModeler tool, ZModeler brush. You want to not have any subtools if you're going to be working with ZModeler. It's not possible to use the ZModeler brush with subdivs. Let's get this a little bit closer. Down here. And we'll move it up here as well. Every time you kill a gnat, it replicates from its remains by the multiple of 1,000. Oh no. I didn't know that. Well, that sucks. Come on, I just did like a Jackie Chan move on live stream, and you guys can't be proud of me? Goofy, what's up? Goofy's here, guys. Welcome to the stream, Goofy. We're sculpting you. Tim, welcome to the stream. Does ZBrush have a utility to make quads planar to minimize tries? To make quads planar, I'm not sure how making a quad planar to minimize a try would work. Maybe you can explain that in a little bit of a different way. But if you have a try and you're able to, you can just use the Z modeler brush, hover over that edge and go to delete edge, target edge, and as long as you know, if it's just a random try, you should be able to delete that edge. Similar to how I can't delete this right now because it has other edges going into it, but if I wanted to delete the edge loop, I could do that. So you could maybe delete a if you have 2 tries that are making a quad, you could maybe find a way to delete that way. Or you could maybe just use your I'm not sure what you mean by planar is the thing. You can trim and make stuff planar that way. You can use a trim brush in your Control-Shift brush selections up here. There's a bunch of trim brushes. Or you can just click on the inner circle here of your transpose line and that'll make it planar. I don't know. Could use the Z modeler brush to kill that gnat. I could sculpt a gnat and then use a Z modeler brush and hover over the face and go to delete all. That would kill it. Geometry, modify topology, merge tries, says Dr. Depressa. So maybe you can get rid of your tries that way. I think that depends again on the flow of your topology. But you can see down here, but I'm not sure exactly where that is. All triangles would be converted to quads where it is possible. So if it's possible, again, that's the key thing there. So that shoe is looking a lot better. The other thing we could do is maybe do a negative for the hole in his shoe, which would be really easy. We'd do it the exact same way that we did that negative here, this piece. But instead of the cube that we added, this time we'll add in a creased cylinder. I'll just insert that up here. And delete that. Set that to negative, and voila, we have a hole in our shoe. And it's just going through the sole right now. It looks like it's actually going deeper in the illustration, so maybe we would move that below and below this piece of geometry, the hot dog, and try to play with it that way. I'm just going to leave it like that for now, and we can think about making some more changes to that later. For our other shoe, we're going to start by duplicating what we have in this one, and then mirroring it over to the other side. I probably want to make this shoe a little bit more narrow, though, altogether before I do that. So to make a large-scale change to everything, I'm going to go into the Z plugin, Transpose Master, and then take this shoe and just modify everything here. So let's just select what we want. And squeeze that in, narrow it out. We want a thin hot dog. We can also do some stuff to our shoe to bevel the edges to make them not quite as hard. It almost seems like the shoe is subducting up under that sole a little bit, so I can show you guys some cool ways we can do that as well. Creases don't translate over to Transpose Master, so that's a little unfortunate, but I think maybe a little bit thinner. I think that's fine. Let's see what that looks like. Whoa, come back, please. Sneeman says, "Oh snap, it's Follygon. What's up? What's going on?" Doug says, "Don't forget to save." Doug, I have a confession to make. Just to you though. Everybody else, close your ears. I never save. That's a joke because I actually save like I have OCD. I will save a file and then I will go back and save it 5 seconds later. Let me see something here. What do I got in my quick saves? Pretty much all goofer. I'm fine with, like, if I'm in the middle of working on a project, I won't save it out too often unless I make like some big change or a change to where I want that specific file later. For the most part though, I'll just quick save while I'm going here. I have like up to 10 quick saves going back through here. And on a really bad crash, you'll typically get a recovered subtool, so it's not the end of the world. I think I'm gonna make this cylinder pinched in a little bit more too. And I'm gonna have to figure out how that pant leg is gonna line up here as well. I'm gonna delete that mesh. And I'm gonna move this out so I can get a little bit of that surface showing as well. Cool. So like I was saying, I want to get this edge to maybe subduct under there a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is use my ZModeler brush and bevel this edge. Let's do something pretty small at first. And that's transitioning a little bit more softly now. That's nice. I actually can do the same thing on this geometry, but my intention being a little bit different here. Instead of softening the edge, I'll actually, you know what? Let's make this, oh crap, come on, there we go. Try to make that a thin bevel. I'll do the same thing on the bottom. What's great about the ZModeler brush is if you do one operation, so I just beveled that at that specific width there. And now if I just click on this edge, it'll do the exact same operation. Same width, same everything. So that's pretty nice. This is a pretty hard edge in here, but for the most part, I'm just trying to get rid of, it's just looking a little too sharp. Once we subdivide on that, it'll look better too. But for the most part, I think that's good. I could maybe make this bevel a little thicker too. Let's just play around here and see what we can do. Bevel edge loop. It's wanting to select that edge loop for some reason. Come on, play nice. There we go. There we go. That is what I'm looking for. That kind of subduction under the shoe. So we get this really cool interaction between the hot dog leather and the sole of our shoe. Whoops, let's undo that. I want to turn my symmetry back on. I'm going to be moving this. And remember, I have to use local symmetry because this is off the symmetrical axis. And cool. It's getting there. This is the kind of stuff that I like to take a lot of time on typically. I'll try not to spend too much time working on one hot dog before we jump on over to the other one, or maybe doing something else. Since we've already done one, we don't have to do another. I can do it later. But for the most part, like I was saying, I like to take my time on this stuff just because these are the kind of areas where it's really easy to be lazy about it and kind of laissez-faire and go really fast. And taking your time with it just to make sure that, you know, the curves are looking good and got a really clean form and we're sticking to the shape of the illustration up here pretty well, which I think we could use some additional work, but it's pretty close. This is the kind of stuff that I like to pay attention to. And we'll duplicate this, move it over here, and we have that. And then we'll grab our curved tube and grab some ketchup. Squirt some ketchup on here. Beautiful. Don't forget your mustard. You gotta do mustard too. Get some mustard. Great. Looks delicious. All ready to eat. And that's how you make a hot dog shoe in ZBrush, guys. Just like that. We're gonna hold on to that. We might need it later. You never know. Love your work. Thank you, Rolando. I appreciate it. Pixelogic announces subtool folders and the world rejoices. That would most definitely be the case. I think I would eat this hot dog. I have eaten worse looking things than this hot dog. Alright guys, so for the other shoe, I would just duplicate this over and then work on getting this 90-degree turn and play around with that. But instead of doing that now, since we've kind of spent quite a bit of time on this shoe, let me see actually how we are doing on time really quick. Alright, cool. Yeah, we got plenty of time here. So I'm gonna look at the pants next. Pants are pretty dominant on our list, and that's gonna allow us to kind of look at this fold here. We kind of looked at doing one of these, or at least initially starting it up here, how we would go about kind of getting a fold like this into place. It doesn't take a lot of work, and it's really easy to manipulate after you've gotten it to this point. But I'm gonna pretty much tackle that pant leg in almost the same exact way. If anything, on this one, this depression here could be pushed in even further to really exaggerate that shadow. I'm so bad at making clean lines. You wouldn't think if you looked at my work that I'm bad at making clean shapes, but just in general I am, which is why I have to go back through and re-clean up a lot of stuff. Like this fold. This fold looks like trash right now. We have a lot of stuff I'd want to do on this. Another thing you want to think about when you're working on folds like this, kind of just the stuff that's rolling through my head, is edge quality. So while you're, let me smooth that out before I show you guys this. So you don't want your, and what I mean by edge quality is you don't want your edges to be the same level of creasedness. You don't want it to be the same level of tightness through the entire area here. So as this kind of comes out down to the bottom here and transitions back into a flat plane, that's where I want to start fading that crease out. So I don't want it to just be super tight all the way through, tight, 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 and then just stop. That looks really awkward. So that's, and it's not how, you know, folds are gonna interact in real life. You want to, pretty much in everything that you're adding in any kind of crease or hard edge, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be a hard edge, but you want to start looking at the edge quality throughout that entire stroke, thinking about how you can either transition that into a softer form like this, or keep it tighter on the edges and soften it as it comes towards the middle, or, you know, transition from one side to the other. There are a lot of ways to look at it, and keep it from looking really similar all the way throughout. Gonna hide his vest for a moment. Right now I'm trying to get this kind of billowing effect here. I said we'd look at the pants, but I always get distracted. Something like this is probably something I'll return to a bunch of times too. Like, I'll probably look at the fold in the hat up there a little bit more later, just because it's a little uniform. And once we start to add asymmetry and play with that, we'll get even further with it. But we got some billowing kind of going on there now. Might be a little bit too tight, but I'm kind of fine with it. Let's look at the pant leg down here, guys. See what we can do. Roland says, Patreon now. I do have a Gumroad though. Almost missed the stream. Goofy is looking pretty good. Thank you, Asa Anima. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you're interested in some of my courses or one-on-one mentorship, you guys can check out my Gumroad account. If you just Google Gumroad Follygon, you should find it. Let's see. Hi, how are you using the XYZ sliders on the top of your interface? Asks Sebastian. These sliders are specifically for size in ZBrush. So as I switch objects, you'll see these change. If you look down in your geometry palette, you have size and position. If I grab the nose here, you can see that this is its positional coordinates. It's on the 0x axis, so it's centrally mirrored there. And then this is just where it's positioned in space. And then these sliders, which are at the top of my screen here, are how large it is in the X, Y, and Z space. I keep this up here as a reminder for someone that works in production. While I'm sculpting, sometimes I like to keep things in the appropriate scale. My scale is set to 1, so this is all accurate information to what the actual size is here. As well as, I know that ZBrush likes to work best at 2 units cubed, so I try to keep things right around that size. So some of these, you know, are getting around like 10 or so, but for the most part, it's pretty close. It's not, this isn't crazy big or crazy small in any way, so I'm happy with the way this is working out. And this, I just like to keep that up there as, you know, visual reference for, so I know how big everything is. Let's see now. So for the pant leg, I was working on this on stream yesterday. Again, if you want to see part 1 of this character, it's here on the Pixelogic channel. Part 2 is on my YouTube channel. But the way I created this, I was able to add in some geometry to get this to be a little bit tighter in this area. And then from there, I'm going to add in some extra geometry to start creating a fold. And then go from there. I'm actually going to take our hot dog meat and duplicate it to the other side. Just temporarily. I just want to move it back here so that I can gauge size, nothing else. Size and position is all I'm looking for here. And maybe we can very quickly... What's going on there? There we go. Maybe we could do a really tight turn here. It doesn't matter if it's super dirty. And if we get that kind of stuff going on. I mainly just want this for reference. So I think my pant leg, let's see here. Can probably make that pant leg a little bit more thin and maybe make this leg, let's see, the upper leg. I was gonna say a little bit shorter, but maybe not. Maybe just change this angle a little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit shorter. I don't think it'll hurt. I'm just aligning my transpose line from a couple different angles there. And we should be good to go. Maybe that leg is pushed back a little bit further in space as well. I think that's also what's kind of thrown me for a slight loop here. So let's mess with angles. So this is why you want to start getting these other pieces in here. It makes referencing all these forms a little bit easier. I think this could also be a little bit longer. Okay, and let's rotate this leg back a little bit. I'm surprised there's not as many people this stream asking why Goofy looks so drunk or high. And I still don't know, but I should ask @VerticalDraws on Twitter who made the original concept. I wish I could say I made this concept, but no, I did not. Nowhere near as skilled as Maddie C. Awesome work, congrats. Thank you. All right, I think this needs to be thinner. More thin. So we can scale centrally in here. Oops. If I can grab that ring, there we go. One of the things that I was trying to focus on, that crease is kind of getting in the way now, is making sure that the form here on the bottom of the leg, the bottom of the shin, had this nice kind of curve to it, whereas the top had kind of this hard line 1-2 hit. So 1-2, minus that fold there. That fold will not be present later. Let's do a Dynamesh on this. I just wanted to get rid of those subdivs, get rid of that crease. They were causing more harm than good. I don't know though, I think he's looking pretty good. He's getting there. There's still a lot more that we need to do, but you know, it's always one step at a time. And we're making one step at a time in the right direction. This could maybe be shorter. I might wait to do that with that bottom edge. Same with this leg over here. I might need to make it, change its length a little bit. But let's look at how I would do this crease to fold transition now. It's gonna be the same as what we did before with the shirt, or at least pretty similar. Rolando Barry says, for your mentorships, do you have to have a file already? Or could you spend the time essentially in another way? Absolutely, yeah, that's definitely a possibility. If you already have another file and you don't even want to look at that and you would prefer to do something else, that's absolutely a possibility. I keep that time kind of open for different areas that you want to focus on. That's the whole point of mentorship. Let's remesh this and get it a little bit lower, easier to manipulate. Right now I'm just having some trouble using my move brush. It's way too high. Goofy's looking way too high. But yeah, Rolando, you definitely don't have to have a file. Again, it's the whole objective there is to focus on specific areas where you would like to. So if there's something specific that you would like to focus on, or if you're just looking for kind of general feedback and critique, portfolio critique, you know, whatever it is, we can, if you want, you can email me and send me some ideas. I think my email is there on my Gumroad. If not, it's just follygon@gmail.com. So one thing I want to avoid on these pants is having areas where essentially it starts to look like it's kind of thinning as it gets down into that crease there. I'm going to want this to be a really tight crease in here so that when these forms meet here, it doesn't, you don't get, I kind of call them like ZBrush kind of edges. It's essentially where, let me show you. In kind of an area like this, you start to get this really rounded edge. It's kind of tough to get these tight creased areas like what I have here by just using some of the standard functions. You kind of have to fight your sculpt sometimes to get that kind of stuff. And it's just because that kind of form is hard to create. It's not any fault of the software, it's just, you know, this is a tool and you have to figure out how to use it in the best way possible. So it's just a matter of me kind of creating this nice tight area here, which we have kind of going pretty well so far. I was spending some time to manipulate this leg to make sure that that was looking pretty good. On the front side, I need that to be rounded a little bit more. I think once we merge these together, we'll worry about that a little bit more too. So let's do that now, actually. Merge down, actually delete lower subdivs, merge down. Don't want any subdivs, crap. I do want subdivs. Split that off, add some subdivs to that. Merge it back down, cool. All right, now I'm gonna dynamesh these. and manipulate this form. Let's see. Got some pretty janky poly groups going on in some of this. Do I want to keep any of these? Sure, why not? Let's keep these. Let's turn off polypaint. Dynamesh at around 100 maybe? It should be pretty high. It's 500,000 points. That should be good for our purposes. So using my pinch brush, I'm going to help out the area here in the front for the knee transition. So this is another one of those areas where, and I was just talking about, you get these really soft transitions. If there's, you know, if you want to get those hard, kind of sharper areas, you're gonna have to do some work to get that to happen. Especially if you're using something like ZBrush, you're gonna have to either crease some edges or subdivide up and start pinching like what I'm doing right now. So as that rotates back, you know, you can, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. So if I start to smooth this out here, look at this edge. You start to lose that quality that we worked so hard to get, this tightness in here. So we want to hold on to that. So if you want to go through with one of your pinch brushes and crease it up, it's kind of a good way to handle that stuff. Or if you want to separate it with poly groups like what I've done, there's some really good techniques for using that to your advantage, which we're going to look at here shortly. I'm making sure that that's not looking too pinched in around the knee here. And I see a lot of the time when people are working on stylized stuff, and they're also kind of studying anatomy at the same time, they start to over-model some of these areas. We're working on something that's super simple and clean, and if it's not in the concept, you don't want to add it in. So you don't want to come in here and start, you know, sculpting a knee for Goofy, and however you, and then start to like run the ridge of the tibia, I think, down the front of his shin there. You don't want to start adding in all that stuff. Like, it's not in the concept, first of all. And second of all, he's wearing pants. You're not going to see, hopefully. Yeah, these don't look like skinny jeans to me, so you're not going to see any of that form. Plus, you're going to start to feel really off IP and off the concept if you start to add in these additional areas that we don't want. So that's looking pretty tight, and that's good for kind of our initial pass. From there, we will soften that up some more. But initially, that is what we are looking for, to keep that pretty tight. And then with some additional changes to our geometry, we'll get that going in a good direction. So there's our poly group there. I'm going to create some new poly groups up here. Look at that. And I'm using the mask lasso tool as well as Control W. It polygroups whatever you have visible or whatever you have masked, depending on you know, if nothing's masked or not. So if I shrink that in some, and it's not quite even, we'll try to mask this a little bit more evenly. It's probably close enough, and then just polygroup that edge there. And now I'm going to ZBrush this with Keep Groups On, and that will hopefully retain these polygroup edges that we've created and just make that a little bit easier to see. There are those. So let's come on down into our ZBrush palette down here, Keep Groups On, and we'll set that to maybe 2K. We'll see what that does, see how good of an edge flow we get with that. Vad says, great work, man. Well, thank you, Vad. I appreciate it. Glad you're here, hanging out. Okay. Ooh, that's fun. That's real nice. Let's see what's going on there. Okay, so we're getting some jank. Some jank junk. I want to get rid of that jank junk. So I'm just going to polygroup this, maybe smooth this out a little bit. And we'll just remask this area off and do a new polygroup. I'll use my mask pen. And we'll clean that up. Nice and neat. And then Control W, that's the polygroup shortcut. And ZRemesh, let's go for 1K. That was looking a little high, so I think we can go a little bit lower. Jank junk, that's right. That junk is jank. It's jank, jank, junk. That's looking better. With that, a lot of the time I would go through and reproject some higher resolution detail. So maybe from something like this, I would reproject that onto the low res. But honestly, this is retaining my form pretty well already. So I think I'm just going to keep this and subdivide up from here. I'm a fan of what we got so far. I would maybe like to delete a couple edge loops where this gets really tight in here. So just hover over an edge, delete edge loop complete. It's just unnecessary. We can get these a little bit closer to quads. There's too much going on. And when you do this, when you start getting rid of these, it starts to make your form more simple. And we're getting a little bit long here, but that's fine. And it starts to get rid of the warble in your surface. Your shape is much more simple. And it has less areas where it can start to, you know, get all crazy, get all wobbly. And we do have a little bit of that going on if we look at the bottom up view here. And I can come through with my move brush and pretty gently, or very gently, I should say, go through here and start manipulating this shape. So let me undo that just so you can see there's that kind of awkwardness we got going on, and just trying to fill that out some. Get a nice curve here from one side. Maybe have this be a little bit more straight on top. Kick in our character design fundamentals of straights versus curves in our silhouette. Have a little bit more of a straight maybe on that one side. And a little bit more of a curve on the other. And that's just going to help that shape out a little bit more. Let's do the same thing to the other leg. I think we can definitely delete a couple of these edge loops. Let's look at this one. Whoops. I will delete that, and then I will do something else to fix that after I come through and delete some of these. So as I start to delete some of these edges, it's going to make certain transitional areas happen a lot more softly. Like, that's transitioning a lot more soft than what I want. So to correct that, I'll just go back in and bevel that edge. And if that's still not as tight as I want, I can bevel it again. And that'll get closer and closer to what I'm looking for. Let's stick with 2 though. I think 2 is plenty. And to make the top portion up here, to make that tighter, what I'm going to do is use my masking brush to mask this area off. And then manually, don't want these vertices. Start to move these vertices to be closer up here, so we'll get a nice tight pinch in on this geometry. Ooh, not that one. And you can see how that's interacting there. And then it's just a matter of kind of doing the same idea, straights versus curves over here, having a nice kind of rounded surface a little bit on the front side of that leg, being a little bit straighter on the back, looking at it from the side silhouette. We're a little bit straighter on the inside, a little bit more curved on the out, which I think is just fine. Back portion of that leg, or the lower portion of that leg, I should say. Modify that some more. Looking good. And all of that just so we can clean up our pants and get them a lot closer to what's going on in our concept. They're a lot cleaner now. We can kind of roll back through all these undos and kind of look at all these changes that we've been making to these pants. Cool, and then from there we can start to add in our fold to the back pant leg here. And continue on, continue sculpting. Maybe we can start adding some asymmetry to the face if you guys want to see that. I think that would be pretty fun. Let's apply our color and material and just add in, I'm just gonna add in a proxy mesh for the pant fold, and then we'll, I think, get into some asymmetry in the face. I think that'll be fun. Let's see. Folly's still going strong, or did you start late? The stream started maybe like 5 minutes late, but no, we're still here hanging out. Is it possible to mask off the entire poly group, including hidden geo, if the poly group is overlapping with other poly groups? Well, you can't have a poly group that's overlapping other poly groups. Maybe I'm not sure what you mean by that. The quick way to mask a poly group is to use your transpose line or your 3D gizmo and just control click on a poly group. That will mask it off for you. Additionally, you can just control shift and click a poly group, with any brush that you have. If you control shift click a poly group, it will hide everything. And then you can just control click on your canvas and that'll mask it. Control shift click to bring everything back. And now that's just masked. And then you can control click to invert your mask or whatever you want to do. That's gonna give somebody a seizure probably. Isolate your poly group and mask. Then you will have the mask. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Kramer. That is, that's how I would do it. I'm not sure maybe what you mean by poly groups overlapping other poly groups, as that's not entirely possible. But if you have something in geometry where you have multiple subtools in one piece, they might look like they're the same poly. Well, they could possibly be the same poly group. Do I have anything here? Okay, teeth. Okay, let's look at our teeth here. So I have some poly groups on my teeth. The inside edges of these are poly grouped. If I want to mask this, I can control click on that, and it masks everything except for that edge. Or I can invert that mask and then work on just this part here. Or I can just solo mode it and then sculpt on just this if I want to do that. You know, there's a lot of different options for selections and masking. All right, let's add in our proxy mesh and then do some asym to our face, guys. Curve tube, snap brush. I'm gonna turn off my size modifier. I'm gonna make this a little bit larger, lower my Z intensity, and draw that out. When you, what the heck, come on. When you lower your Z intensity, it will make the mesh more flat that you're working with. So if I make this really low, this gets really thin, kind of like a strap or something. So maybe you could use it for something like that. And then your brush size actually controls the size of that geometry, of course. All right, so something along the lines of what we have here, and then with some fair amount of tweaking, we can get that looking pretty good. But like I said, I just wanted to get something in there so that we can move on with the rest of our face and doing some asym. We'll just kind of generally, it's probably fine for now. Something like that. And I will look at that later. Cool. Let's look at doing some asymmetry to our face. Since we're kind of already sculpting in pose to an extent. I started leaning him back pretty far from the beginning. So let's do it. Let's go into transpose master. Close all that junk. And I'm gonna add some tilt to our face so that we can break symmetry immediately. Gustavo says, nice, you're back with Goofy. That's right, man. Welcome back. Glad you're here. If you did miss part 2, I did that on my YouTube channel. So I think the link is somewhere up here, or you can just Google Follygon and you'll find my YouTube channel. I started to add in the body here a little bit more than what we did in this stream. King BB says, very nice. Is adjusting the canvas size the only way or best way to control sculpts from looking blurry or jagged? Yeah, I guess. If your resolution, we'll quick save, because when you start messing with your document size, you can crash pretty easily. You can also click on the AA half, that's anti-aliasing. So what you can do is you can make your document size twice as big as what you would normally have it, and then clicking on AA half will anti-alias your canvas. If you don't know what anti-aliasing is, it's essentially just taking, think of if you're looking at the border edge of 2 pixels, like this. So here's our 2 pixels. Anti-aliasing is going to come through and essentially blur this edge and try to make that look a little bit more smooth. So that's all it does. So you could try doing that. Can I not anti-alias? Thought I could. Oh no, actual. That's what I clicked. I confuzzled myself for a moment. So yeah, AA half or actual size. And then just increase your document size. Like I said, if you have a smaller monitor or something, you can change your document and then click on AA half. So you can make it really big and then shrink it down. Oh, don't want to do that. Okay, so the head. Let's start selecting all this. Okay, I'm just gonna, let's just polygroup that, mask it off, and I'm gonna rotate here from about the pivot point of the neck a little bit this direction. I'm also gonna turn on my perspective while I do this. So this is kind of our hero angle, our render angle that we're gonna be shooting for, everything that we're trying to match here in the concept we're trying to do from this particular angle. Oh, another thing I wanted to do, it's on my list, don't want to forget. You guys were supposed to remind me. I wanted to scale up the head some. It was looking, I thought, a little bit too small, and maybe the neck's a little bit too short? I think it is. So head larger, neck longer. Nessie neck. Another thing that's going on in the head is maybe more tilting forward, maybe more tilting to the side. I kind of like to just turn on my polyframe mode with the lines off, just so I can get like a little bit of a colored read, just to help break things up even more. I do that pretty rarely, but sometimes it's helpful for seeing this stuff. So we're not just moving our head here, we'll also go through and start to adjust our eyes, our nose, parts of our mouth, ears, hat, everything. One step at a time. I'll probably do that outside of Transpose Master, but let's cascade that back to our subtools and then go from there, see what that's looking like. Thanks, that helps a lot. Absolutely. Absolutely. Glad the document AA half thing helped. Head seems spot on to me. I think you got the neck just right now when extending it. Yeah, I think so. At least it's a lot closer. Sculptors tend to... I don't know why, but like everyone does this. They tend to make hands and heads too small when sculpting characters. So I try to make the head a little bit bigger than I think it needs to be, and then it's easier for me to kind of push that back from there if I need to. I think, you know what? Let's go back to transpose. Let's do this. Let's take the head, push it back in 3D space, and then adjust the neck to lean back further. Let's try this real quick. The neck just needs, man, this is connecting really far back, or something. Come on. See what that's looking like. I think that's, let's transpose back. Whoops. Just so I can see that. I'm looking at some other angles here with like how, if I can, once I close this, I'll show you guys on the concept. I'm looking at how this line is kind of flowing throughout the whole body. And I'm trying to get that to line up a little bit better here, and the head angle just doesn't feel right, which is why I was kind of trying to push that back some more. So if we look at it from the side view, it definitely becomes a lot more obvious where the head doesn't have that angle necessarily. And it might just be a problem with the shape of our head. It doesn't necessarily have to be a problem with the angle there. So maybe just adding some more volume up there, which I think is fine. and subtracting some maybe from the base. And I am sculpting asymmetrically here, so I just want to be careful that I'm keeping this nice and clean and also using the correct material. And I'll have to do some interaction stuff with the hat here to make sure that that looks like it's playing off of the head and not just sinking into it. But yeah, he's starting to come together. It's amazing what a little asymmetry can do. We can maybe try to find this angle. And if there's a specific angle that you want to save for your character, there's a couple ways that you can do that. You can save them in your Z app link. I like to personally use the timeline. This is just the way that I do it. You can do this other ways though. And then just save a little mark on your timeline by clicking up there, and if you ever move or scale or whatever, you can just get that back really quick. So I don't know if that's the exact angle that I want, but it's pretty close. Once we start to add some more asymmetry to the rest of this, I think we'll get it in a pretty good place. Let's try something like right there. Rich, hello, welcome to the stream. Okay, so let's look at our head, right? Now that I have gone through here and moved it off the X symmetry plane, I just want to go through and turn off symmetry on all of these geometric pieces because they are no longer symmetrical. I'm gonna turn it off, I guess, for the neck as well. I'm gonna be messing with all of this stuff here a little bit. Alright, so real quick guys, we are at the 2-hour mark, but luckily I have the ability, I don't think there's anybody streaming after me. So I was told we could go an extra hour, so I'm gonna go an extra hour, and if somebody needs to stop me, I think they'll do it. But I think we're cool. I wasn't really paying attention to the time. Alright. So, good old Goof. Well, where do we want to begin? Let's start with the eyes. And we will begin, here's another, somebody was asking about masking earlier. If you have two objects and you don't want to polygroup anything, let's say I want to keep these two polygroups, instead of masking with polygroups, I can control, click, and drag from one object to another, and it will unmask that object in particular. You can also use that for creating selections like this, down arms or legs or something like that. It's really popular for that as well. So I think I'm just going to auto group these though. They're fine. And then I can just mask them and work on them really quick. So this one is probably fine. Let's hide our big old schnoz. That looks creepy. And let's also move this one down. So I have a slight bit more curve on that one eyelid than this one. So I'm going to try to keep this edge nice and clean while I move this. So I'm trying to do some smaller movements with my move brush, but if things get out of hand, I can always pinch up that edge or clean it up in a number of other ways. And Disney characters love to have their eyes just jammed right against each other. God knows why. So we're gonna have to figure this kind of interaction out, I guess. Kind of want to keep this this kind of connection point here, this curve that's happening, and it's like noticeably hitting here lower, but because this kind of inner area is hidden from the angle of the eyes that we're looking at, we can kind of play with this a little bit and still adjust our form on one eye to be pretty drastically different and a little bit more drunken or lazy as it is in the concept. Heavier eyelid, that's what I meant to say. Goofy's not drunk, Goofy doesn't drink. But Mickey's got a drinking problem. Looks like Goofy got a black eye. Something. How to get non-jagged masks. Control-click sharpens it, but I wonder if I can do it by default. Also, how many polys so far? I have no idea. We're like at 1.8 million points. Roughly that. I don't pay attention to poly count. But let's look at masking. I'll show you. I will show you the very simple answer to your question. There we go. There's a good old crash, but we're getting a save. I bet it won't save the correct Z tool, though. It's okay. We'll reload up ZBrush. This gives us a second here to mention that if you guys like the... Oh, gosh. Oh, nope, I suck. If you guys like the free stuff that I do on my YouTube channel or here on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel, you can also check out my Gumroad, where I do a bunch of paid courses and tutorials and some one-on-one mentorship, if that's something that you're interested in. It looks like ZBrush is back online. Maybe. Let's see. So it recovered our project. Let's see if it actually saved it. This is fun. I think I'll just continue to do this. How we looking, Goof? Did you save your dadgum eyes? Yeah, you did. Good job. Good job, ZBrush. That's why we love you. Now I was trying to delete this. It worked that time. Cool. So who was it? Uikio. Sure. That's your new name. So the problem that you're getting with jagged masks. So let's look here. I'll try to do it. And we'll change the color. So you're getting some jagged masks, right? This is what you're talking about. So if you control click, it softens the mask. And if you hold control and alt, it sharpens the mask. So you can do that to get a little bit of a sharper mask, right? But that's not exactly what you're looking for, because I don't know why you'd ever want to create a mask with all this stair-stepping, which I think is what you're talking about when you say jagged masks. So the problem is not with your mask, but with your geometry. So to get a clean mask, you're going to need clean geometry. And you can see I have clean edge loops here. So because of those clean edge loops, when I start to mask something like this, and then I sharpen the mask, I can get a really sharp, clean mask, and maybe I can polygroup that and make that really clean. And that's just because that geometry is really clean. But sometimes you have some geometry. Do I have anything that's Dynamesh? No, I don't. Let's go down here. Sometimes you have some geometry like this, right? That's no fun. So you can't get a super clean mask. So maybe you want to rework your geometry. Maybe you want to add some additional subdivision levels in there. The more subdivision levels you have, the cleaner your mask will be. I also need to restore my custom UI. There we go. I knew something didn't feel right. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. It's most likely not a problem with your mask, more than likely a problem with your geometry. Goofy still has his sobriety coin. Well, Goofy's a liar. Maybe we can tuck a sobriety coin in his pocket. That's awesome. Let's see. So what do I want to do about these eyes? I don't know. We'll leave that connection there for the eyelids, and I think I'll modify this. Ooh, I need to import my reference. Load Spotlight. Okay, so I was going to rotate this eye, or at least try to move it. These are just low-res pieces of geometry that I extruded from my eye. So what you can do, it's easier to just hide stuff and get it out of the way. So you can work on one thing at a time. And I'm just manually moving this little eye piece of geometry that I made around. You guys can paint your eyes on your mesh, but I mean, it really, you know, it's just a matter of preference here, since this is just a sculpt. Plus, it allows me to use my different brushes and create some different interesting shapes. If I want to make this more cylindrical or longer, I can just kind of tug on it. This one over here looks to be a bit larger, so I can maybe scale that up and pull it down. I think this one, this eye, could be rotated in even more. All these little small tweaks just adding up. I'm trying to keep things from overlapping in the middle of the eyes there, because it just creates this really weird interaction in 3D. So I'm going to try to avoid that. It might, which is why I'm trying to keep that kind of connected there with the eyelashes that I've, like this dark line that I've made. I don't know if it's gonna work the exact way I want, so maybe we can, maybe there's some creative solutions we can do here. This is the kind of thing I want to avoid. So I could just straight up paint that on there. I want to try to keep this geometric though. Let's leave it like that for now. It's not looking bad. It's not looking perfect. Not looking spot on to our concept here. So that's how you do it. Thanks for answering. Yes, absolutely. I'm talking about the masking. Another thing that we have going on asymmetrically, one of these eyes, this one is much taller than the other. So we can start to maybe push that a little bit further. If we want, and maybe even exaggerate it more in the other eye by making this one shorter. And then we'll have to obviously pull in here, tuck that under. And that's not looking super nice. So I want to try to round that out a little bit more. Make that look a little bit more clean. Same with the other one. There we go. Gubert's looking better, one step at a time. Let's add some asym to these ears as well. I think the one that I already have is pretty close to the angle I want. If anything, it doesn't have quite as strong of a curve. And maybe I could make these a little bit flatter. They're very rounded right now. Goofy's ears, I think, are thicker, kind of on here. I don't really know how to explain the shape. I can show you. And it's something like this. Really rough, quick. Something to that extent on one side. Make them look more ear-shaped instead of just tubules that we currently have. There's a bunch of different ways we can do that. We could use our geometry, our edge loops that we have to our advantage. Maybe mask off something. Since we were just talking about creating masks and working with those. Or we could just follow some edge loops and then flatten that geometry from there. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? Let's take one and start hiding geometry. Double. My edge loops going this way, this geometry starts to get, we have a try there, so things start to get a little convoluted down here. Maybe we can make this a little bit smaller. And now the edge flow is just not what we need. So I'd probably recommend coming through with a mask. Maybe let's try this. Let's do a mask like that. Polygroup it. Sure, looks good. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Try to keep it about the same size. Delete lower. Delete hidden, close holes. Voila, we're done. Now that looks kind of terrible. So we want to clean that up, or at least we should. Let's use the ZBrush palette and keep groups. to try and make those nice and clean. These are really jagged, so this might not work the exact way I was planning. As you continually ZRemesh on one piece of geometry, it'll get thinner and thinner. So you can be aware of that. There we go. It's not terrible. It's doing essentially what I wanted, having that flat shape on one side. So that's one way to do it, kind of automatically, instead of manually going through and sculpting it, which is obviously an option as well. Ooh, can I delete? What can I delete? I can delete some of you. So some of the problems you might see is that this starts to get, like it starts to sink in here. That's not exactly the shape I'm looking for. So I'm gonna clean these up now that we have the initial shape that we want. And then from there it's pretty easy to make changes. Just some of these edges in here, these edge loops are just adding too much additional form and making things dirty where they don't need to be. Adding additional edge, or, you know, turns in the surface where it doesn't need to be. Need that to be nice and clean. So some subdivisions from here, and then some soft smoothing using the alternative smooth brush by letting go of shift when smoothing. Come through with maybe some trim brush. Make sure backface masking is on so you're not going through to the other side. Let's turn off poly paint. So I'm using my trim dynamic brush to fill that in. And then just soften some of that form. So we're getting a little bit of that kind of planar shape on one side now. And then some more tweaking. Some more quick smoothing. And voila! We have some ears instead of some tubes. And I think I would make these even softer still, so let's try doing that. What PC you using? Oh gosh, I've never been asked that before. I made this computer. I built this computer with my own two hands. I homegrew the motherboard. Yeah, I've built every PC that I've, well, actually that I've ever owned, other than one laptop that I've owned. Yeah, just random parts stuck together. And I can't name them all off the top of my head, but I have an i7 CPU. I think it's something Lake, back when those were the new ones, or maybe it's the one after that. I can't remember the names of the CPUs off the top of my head. 970, GTX 970 graphics card, 64 gigs of RAM, which is a lot. Yeah, that's about it. That's the important stuff. What's that called? Spring Lake? I want to say Spring Lake. That doesn't sound right, though. Swan Lake. I don't remember. $64? I only have 4. Yeah, it's a lot of RAM. I needed it for a specific project. Yeah, still got it. I want to delete that edge loop, but it's not going to let me. Let's not mess with the ears anymore. If anything, I might add additional form up here. You regret only getting 32 when RAM was cheap? Yeah. ZBrush crashes around 200k points. Wow. Yeah, I could never work like that. ZBrush needs that RAM. Eats it up. But yeah, 4 is not like crazy low. You can. I had a laptop with 4 initially, and then I bought some DDR5 and shoved it in it, so I had 8. It was the hardest thing that I've ever actually had to do to a computer, because taking apart this laptop was like operating on a brain. It was like, what do people? It was like doing brain surgery. That's what normal people say. I don't like this. I don't like what I've done here. We're getting additional edges that I'm not seeing in the concept. Maybe I will roll back to those kind of rounded shapes. I don't know. Tried to do something, and I actually ended up not liking it. So maybe we just roll back here. Yeah. I just like this more, I think. It looks more on concept, more on form. Plus, I don't want to... My concern there was that I was getting too much additional form in the ear, and I was drawing the eye too much. So let's stick with this. That's okay. It's not like we spent too long on those. Plus, I'd rather recognize something like that now before I move forward a lot, and then I can't roll back. Or I'd have to load up an older file and do that, which isn't the end of the world by any means, but we will stick with that. And start making some changes to the face and some other areas, as well as the tongue and teeth and everything else here. 3D programs need 12 gigabytes of RAM minimum. I don't know about that. I used to use ZBrush with 8 gigs. And you know, I think I was hitting around like... I could work on pretty large files. Now I can do like 100 million polys in a bunch of stuff, and it's totally fine. You still experience slowdowns. You could probably work on a project with 100 million polys on 8 gigs of RAM. You just have to split up your subtools in a logical way, and a logical and efficient way. I definitely think it's possible though. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of definitives or ultimatums in the sense of you need this to do this. You can make stuff work with what you got. We'll turn on Lazy Mouse. I'm using the MAH cut brush here to create a seam in the tongue. This is a brush that you can get on Pixelogic's website for free. It's kind of like the Damn Standard and Pinch brush had a baby. And I like it a lot. I use it quite often. It's kind of new to my repertoire. Now remember what I said about edge quality before, if you guys were here when around the beginning of the stream. When you're doing something like what we're doing right now, you're creating an edge or a seam or a crease or whatever you're doing, you don't want your edge to have the same level of creasity. It's a French word. It's not. I'm lying. You don't want it to look the same all the way through the entire edge. You want it to start to kind of fade out here towards the end. You want to do something so that it's not having the same, gosh, what's the word? I don't know. I can't sculpt and think at the same time, so that's why my brain just goes on autopilot most of the time here. You just don't want it to look the same all the way through the crease. So, you can start to clean that up. Looking a little bit better. Can maybe start to fill in some of that. It's getting there. There's a weird vert right there. So to help with, you guys might not be able to see this right here. There's like a little pinch happening right there, and that's because of that vertice. That try that we have there where those faces are all meeting right here. So what you can do is you can use your trim brush a little bit on something like that. Trim it here as well. And then use the smooth brush, and instead of the normal smooth brush, you want to let go of the shift key when you start smoothing, and that will help average out all those vertices. So instead of doing the normal smooth out algorithm, it's a little bit more of an averaging out of those areas. And I'll do that on a little bit of a, whoops, do that on some of the lower subdivs as well. And I can't tell if I'm getting some poly paint changes there or not. It might just be the way that that surface is turning, but there we go. We get a nice crease in our tongue. And if we want to add some poly paint to this, like a dark line or something like this, to have it look more like what it does in the concept, then we can kind of paint that up later. I like to add in kind of secondary paint details a little bit more towards the end. I try to focus on form as much as I can. And if I'm adding poly paint, it's at this stage, it's just a block out of a single color. So like all of this, it's all one color, the tongue is all one color, teeth, all one color, etc. Let's move the nose. And instead of moving it, I'm going to use the transpose line and skew it. So if you have move turned on, normally you can use this middle point, and then you can move your mesh around like this. But if you use the end point, from here to here, you can actually skew it along your transpose line. So I can add a little bit of skew in one direction here. So I can start to skew that towards the camera a little bit. And then I might have done that a little bit too much. I don't know. Then we can maybe add some rotation to it ever so slightly. The read here that I'm getting is that it's a little bit more flat on this side. I like the kind of curve that we're getting here from the profile view, so I want to retain some of that. And straighten that out a little bit here. And then you can maybe poly paint in here if you want to get some, get some of these darker areas. I think those are actually poly grouped. So what's also awesome about poly groups is that you can use them for adding poly paint in certain areas. So something like that. And if I would like to get that to go out to the edges a little bit more, I can start to manipulate my mask to get that to happen. So something like that. That turned out pretty well with relatively minimal work. So that darkens that area up pretty well. For the rest of the nose here, I might want to, let's roll back to our masking, reverse our mask, sample this lighter color on top of the nose, and I'm gonna experiment here with adding in about 25% of that purple highlight that's on top of the nose, and just seeing what that looks like. And I don't like that at all, so I think we'll roll back. So we're getting some asym on that nose. It's kind of leaning more towards our camera. As you start to do this stuff as you're working from one angle though, if you're working off of one image like I am right now, you want to be wary that you're working in 3D, right? So you want to be rotating around and making sure that it's looking good from every other angle as well. So I might want this mouth to help flow in the direction of this nose, so that this is kind of flowing that way as well, flowing with the nose, which it's kind of coming towards the camera a little bit here, so maybe we can make some more tweaks and changes asymmetrically to our big old schnoz and help it to fit with the nose a little bit better. Mainly I'm wanting that middle crease to kind of line up with this line between the nostrils as I rotate around here. But yeah, that's looking pretty cool from our main angle, at least, which is the important part. Now we have to worry about everything. That's the hard part about 3D. You gotta make it look good from every angle. Lucky us. This looks like it's maybe a little bit more narrow or pointed down than what I have. I actually tried to make this a little bit thicker, so you can't see the bottom of Goofy's mouth from this angle in the concept, but in 3D, obviously he's gonna have a lower portion of his mouth, right? It's not just gonna be hanging open down there. So I tried to make this thicker to attempt to hide this area right here. And I actually think it's not too far off, but this is going to probably be one of those areas where I have to make a sacrifice to make that work a little bit better in 3D. The main thing to keep in mind when you're doing something like that though, is to make sure that make sure that what you're creating still feels like the same character. So I'm just trying to get some of this shape language in there. This flow here. It's a nice S curve. 1, 2, 3 hits. 1, 2, 3 hits. But I just want to make sure that those shapes are feeling similar enough as well. Same over here on the other side. Goofy has seen better days. This is the Goofy you'd find in a back alley. Hattie Mail says, let's see, could curve it outward into a bigger C shape or more convex. Yeah, I'm trying to get this convexity here in this curve between these two major shapes, while also still hiding that lower portion of the jaw. So it's a tough kind of balance to make, and I'm doing some pushing and pulling back and forth to retain that. So we're getting there. Where we were already It was a lot stronger. I'm just trying to still hide that lower jaw. Starting to get a little messy in here. And you know, at this point we've broken symmetry, so just more work for us to do. But I wanted to break symmetry fairly early. I didn't want to sit here and mess with the face and do a lot of back and forth, just because so much of this is asymmetrical that I figured it'd be better to do that early on. And we're at, I think, a good enough place where I think it's gonna be more lucrative now to start working asymmetrically, instead of later on having to redo all this stuff to the other side of the, or making changes asymmetrically later. We can start doing this earlier. Plus, I'm actually still working on this character. I can pull it up really fast. But I'm working, I started on this character completely, where is it? From the beginning, I've been working on this character asymmetrically. Here it is. I'll show it to you guys real quick. It's nearing the final stages of the sculpt, but there's still, I'll turn on live boolean as well. There's still a lot more work that I need to do on this character. I'll turn on perspective. But yeah, this is Domino from Deadpool. It's a concept from, or by D Dino on ArtStation. You should definitely look them up. They have some really cool work. But I've been working on this asymmetrically for quite a while, and it has been a challenge. But she's looking good. There's, you know, still a lot of stuff that I want to change in it. And I'm gonna, I don't want to spend like another month on this character, but if I have to, then I will, to get it to where I need it to. But yeah, she's looking pretty cool. Asymmetrical sculpting. It's tough stuff, but it can be fun. Let's delete that. Get rid of her. Now we're working on good old Goobert here. And we're getting close to our 3-hour time limit. So I will probably need to bounce after that. Or maybe we could just keep streaming. Until someone says, hey, stop that. Because to my knowledge, there's nobody else streaming today. Shh, don't tell Pixelogic, right? No. No, I can't. The fact that I can stream for 3 hours straight, like, it hurts my throat after a while from talking so much. From talking to myself so much, I should specify. But I enjoy streaming and hanging out with you guys. If you guys want to see me stream some more, definitely check out my YouTube channel. It's just YouTube/Follygon. What is that noise? Is that the song? Check out my YouTube channel. I stream on there fairly often. Not every day or anything, but maybe we'll be doing some more streams, and maybe I'll be streaming on Goofy here a little bit more. I will most likely be streaming. This song needs to stop. It sounds like a train, and there are train tracks pretty close to my house. This is like messing with my head. I will most likely be streaming tomorrow, maybe working on good old Goobert here, so if you guys want to see some more of that, tune in tomorrow. I'm not sure what time yet, but I'll post it on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. Let's see. What arm are you using to hold your Cintiq? Is that an 11 or 24? 11 or 24? I don't know what that means. It's an 11. It's an 11. I don't know. The Ergotron arm that I'm using, if you do want to know, go to my website. Guys, we'll find out together. This will take 5 seconds. Go to my website. And if you click on my gear up here, my gear, we can find out. Where is it? This one. It is the Ergotron 45 blah 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 blah. This one. LX sit stand workstation mount LCD arm polished aluminum. Bam. There you go. That's the one. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by 11 or 24. Looks like a 24. Let's just say it is. Most artists are off as soon as the time is up. Follygon got a good streaming spot. Yeah. Well, the reason that people have to get off is just so there's some, at least a little bit of downtime between artists streaming, so it's not, you don't want too much overlap. It'd be really hard to coordinate that. It's already, I mean, the Pixelogic team already does a ton of work coordinating all the streaming here already, so they do a really good job. And I would hate to give them more work. Down to the water bottle. Yes, this is actually my most important tool. I think I have my updated water bottle on there. I used to have a Contigo, and it used to be in all my videos and all my streams. Now this one is. It's a hydro flask. I knew that off the top of my head. I did not have to look. But yeah, we got a good time slot here. Next month, if I can, I'd like to maybe stream on here a little bit more if I can. I guess we'll just see how the schedule falls. Bunny Kumar, welcome to the stream. Hello. How we looking, Goof? How we looking, Goob? Let's maybe. Ooh, you know what? Actually, I kind of want to add. I know what I want to do. I'm gonna mess with the face in a pretty extreme way. I don't have any whiskers on him yet either. I should probably do that at some point before I forget completely. Let's hide the body and then transpose. Well, let's see. Ooh, that's a nice purple. It's fun. Go away. Go away, ugly purple. Okay. So I was thinking that we could add some slight rotation here. Not a lot, but just to start rotating it towards the camera a little bit. So there's one really cool tool that I like to use a lot, and I wouldn't, I might be able to use it on this, but it would mess up a lot of stuff. If you go to your 3D gizmo, and I'm going to center that, unmask center, fix orientation, and then click on this gear and go to bend curve. I think this is it. They've added a bunch of new deformers in here that are really cool, but the bend curve, not the bend curve, but the bend curve. Let's change our axis this way, and then change our resolution to add one vert here, or one point here in the middle, and then just take that and move it like this. And you can really add some quick dynamic, let's click accept real quick. Let's look at that perspective. So you can like really add some quick dynamic curve to an entire figure. I kind of like that actually. I don't know how much it messed up everything else, but you can see that it oh god, I'm pressing everything that I don't want to press. It added a pretty strong curve all throughout this figure, but it can really like make things just like really look cool, and that is kind of what the image is doing. But when you do this, if you have some hard surface stuff like maybe our teeth here, as you start to skew that, it'll start to skew shapes like your teeth as well, so you can start to get some like really slanted stuff like this, so you want to avoid that. The problem is I do like this. That's the main problem. I'm just kind of looking at this from a few different angles, seeing if I would be willing to move forward with this change that I've just made. Let's go back to subtools and just see how big of a change that actually is. It's a pretty big change, but it's pretty dynamic in terms of the curve that we're getting there. Let's turn everything on here. I'm kind of digging it. I think there's some other stuff we would have to change to accept that. We'd have to move our head and some other stuff. But I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of into it. It especially really helps this this main angle. Let's see here. Just noticed that the ZBrush Summit starts this Thursday. Absolutely, it does. I'm really excited. Wonder what the theme is for the Sculpt Off? Yeah, I don't know. I think last year... What did they do last year? Was it... I'm mixing up last year and the year before. Didn't they do cards last year? Like... Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I can't remember. Jack of Hearts or something? I don't remember. Bend curve, yes, that is the name of the the tool, not the turd. Whew, I've been streaming a little bit too long. Click on the gear icon in the gizmo, choose bend curve. Yes, that is correct. Gooby please. Gooby please is right. I'm kind of digging that bend curve. So when I'm doing stuff with the bend curve, I see people use it for stuff like hair, hair tubes and that kind of thing. But really I just like to do that simple kind of 3-point bend curve. 3 or 5 point, typically 3 just to get like a C curve, or a 5 point to get a nice S curve on a shape. Like if you're, let's say you're sculpting a fish and you sculpt the fish perfectly flat, like perfectly along the x-axis, and then at the end you want to add some like swimming motion to it. So maybe you want to add like a cool curve to the entire fish that you're working on. So that'd be a good way to do that. Goobert, Goofy McGee. We'll transpose everything so that I can move this head over so it's not falling off of his body. I like to use my transpose tool more than the 3D gizmo. I've just been using the transpose tool so long that it's just a little bit faster for me to work with it. Let's line up some stuff here. See how things are looking compared to our concept. Winston asks, hey Ben, in regards to digital sculpting, do you remember ever having an aha moment where you figured out something that drastically changed how you sculpt? I can think of one off the top of my head. I will say that fundamentals are so incredibly important, and they're pretty much everything. Like, anything other than fundamentals and practicing fundamentals and understanding like the fundamentals of sculpture and appealing forms that you can create is so very important. And a lot of that is what I try to cover in mentorships that I do with other people. But in terms of aha moments, one of the things that, like, it was pretty early on when I was sculpting, but using separate subtools. Right now I have 30 different subtools in this goofy character. This goofy. But really utilizing multiple subtools. So if I look up at this hat, for instance, sure, you could sculpt this hat as one subtool. It would be really hard though. So I have 3 separate subtools that make up this hat. So what I like to say is, when in doubt, split it out. Essentially meaning, if you're having trouble creating a form, like let's say a fold in a shirt like we did down here. This was originally 2 meshes that I combined. So if you're having trouble in anything, try tackling it in a way that maybe utilizes multiple subtools. I would say that that was kind of when I really figured that out, was like when things started moving a little bit faster for me. It was kind of an aha moment, I guess you could say. I like this green a lot up here. It's a nice green. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, I could probably think of more if I sat here for a moment. But we can't sit and think. There's no time to think. We must sculpt. Let's do some rotation. Here to the head. Trying to get that a little bit more along that central axis. Let's go back to our little hero angle that we had set up here. That's what's great about using the timeline. You can also save your timeline out. I think you can also save your Z app link views as well. Yes, you can. So the Z app link, the way that works is you just click on custom one, or let's say you so you can like rotate, shrink, whatever you do, and then you click back on custom one and it'll put it back. You can save your views that way if you want. I just prefer using the timeline. So if I'm like working with a model sheet or something like that, you can slide between these in your timeline. It's pretty cool. Trying to take a second to look at this, to really look at it. Ugh. Oh man, I'm sad I came so late. Great stuff so far, Folly. Thank you. Appreciate it. Winston says, cool man, thanks. Yeah, of course. Of course. Gorsh. What else does Goofy say? The size of this is like almost the width of his. I keep saying width, and I feel like I'm saying it wrong. It's about the same width of his head here, the top portion. But then this piece like tapers in super hard here at the bottom. But you also want to make sure that you get that concave curve here. So when that smooths out. Whoa. Want to be careful of that. Don't want to scale all of that down. That'd be very bad. Alright, let's add a little bit more tilt, I think, to Goobert's head. Guys, I have another gnat. Maybe I can kill it again. Alright, let's T-pose back. Ooh, got solo mode on accident. Keto and Daniel says, very nice. Well, thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. The head, or not the head, the hat, I think needs a few changes to really feel like the same hat. This curve just doesn't feel the same to me, so I think really working on that form a little bit more will help that out. So this is the fold I was talking about earlier when we were working on some of those other areas in the shirt, I think it was, in the pants. How we might want to adjust some of this when you're thinking about edge quality. And this is looking a little bit too convex here, so I think I'll adjust this form a little bit too and see how that looks. And getting really, really strong there. Not what I want. Alright, that's looking better. Interaction with the head needs to be fixed though. We can look at that a little bit later though. Who was it? MK said the eyelids should maybe come down a little more, come down lower and maybe more at an angle. So what I'm trying to do with the eyelids, this outside corner can for sure come down on this eye. I want to avoid, the main thing I was trying to avoid here was getting the center interaction to not split, which I think we can still avoid and maybe make that change. Let's try it real quick while we're here, while we're thinking about it. Let's make this angle smaller. We can also help facilitate that gap there by bringing up our cheek in that area, so that might help as well. It actually might just help if we shrank this eye altogether, which I think is the bigger change that's actually going to need to happen there. I hate working with black meshes. It's impossible to see what you're sculpting, so I tend to turn off my poly paint so that I can see a little bit better. So it's impossible to see when everything's so dark. Alright, let's see, turn our black color back on. Let me delete that. It's got a pretty strong curve there now. So we're lessening this gap here. This is the distance that we're kind of looking at. But I think maybe we can either help by bringing up our cheek here, or by potentially shrinking our entire eye down. Or maybe just bringing both of our eyelids. I think we can actually move everything down there, and I think that will help a lot. Got too many things we want to mess with. I'm gonna have to make a new list for the next stream. Let's try that real quick. Come on, Big I Beg Goofy. You don't look tired enough. I think that's helping to solve that issue. You can watch as that all moves. So I think that helps to facilitate that as well. So it's all these little changes that we're making that really just after a long time start to add up to the full character. Which sounds obvious, but it would amaze you how many people just give up on these stages. These like little easy things to do that, you know, you just gotta really just get in there and keep tweaking. I see a lot of people ask for critique too early, where it's like, come on, did you even work on that? You can put more effort into that. I know you can. Shane gave me the thumbs up, so if Shane thinks it looks good, I think it looks good too. Thanks, Shane. Said I wouldn't talk about your personal problems on stream. I don't remember saying that. Tell me all your secrets and I'll share them with the world right here. Sneeman. I like that name, Sneeman. It makes me think of I don't know what it makes. It makes me think of like a really tall, creepy, like Nosferatu-like character that says Snee, like a villain. Who am I thinking of? Some character that does that in some old like Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I want these lines to all match up here so we get this nice kind of flow through there. That was terrible. Wow, I cannot draw a freaking curve to save my life right now. But you guys see the lines that I'm talking about. Getting some inner penetration there on the tongue. Mr. Smee from Peter Pan. No, that's not what I'm thinking of. The character has to say, like, Smee or Snee. Mr. Smee is like a... Isn't he like a fat, chubby dude? Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing, but... Isn't he like the chubby dude with, like... He's really dopey and he has a red hat or something? Got a blue and white striped sailor shirt. Whoa, we super broke that when we moved that tongue. Let's try to get some of that good volume that we had in there. Be a good boy and get that good volume back in. based off of Schneemann, which is snowman in German. So, am I to believe that Schnee is snow in German? Makes sense. Checks out. Did I fix my tongue? Sort of. I fixed and broke it at the same time. It's okay, this tongue needed some asym. I'll show you guys another trick here for when you're working on like little creased areas like this. If you use the move and backface masking brush, you can make that crease even tighter that way, if that's something that you would like to do. That's so sad, Contem. Got a sad little chiclet face. I want to use ZBrush, same like you. Well, hey, get ZBrushing. You can do it. Look, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Starting to get that volume back. So I was adding some twist to it, and then it started to lose that volume in the front of the tongue, but we're just now starting to get some of that back. I think in general it kind of needed that, so I'm kind of glad that that happened. Allowed us to help facilitate that surface turn a little bit better. And it's no longer colliding with our buck teeth anymore. So that's good. Can you do hard surface model in ZBrush? It's hard to find a tutorial on that. Well, lucky for you, Dante, we did that earlier in the stream today on our feet. His neck needs to be longer, or maybe it's just from this particular angle. Yeah, we did some hard surface modeling on the shoes down here. So definitely go back a couple hours and you should find that. We use the Z Modeler brush, which is the box modeling tool or low poly hard surface modeling tool in ZBrush. But yeah, there's some cool stuff with that I did. So definitely check that out. Thanks, bro. Absolutely. Thanks for coming and hanging out, Dante. There's just a lot of pushing going on in the face of things that aren't possible. The way that this mouth is facing the camera, plus the gap here that we're seeing, it's really not possible unless I really like take that nose and like yank it to one side really hard, which is not what I want to do. So we're gonna have to make some sacrifices there. We're also going to have to kind of creatively think about What's more important to the read of the character? Which I'm trying to think about right now. This silhouette is nice that we get through here in this lower area, which we still kind of get a little bit even with that angle. We might be able to rotate the head a little bit to get that to not be such a thing, but we'll see. Kenny says, great work. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it. Wipeout says, check out the ZBrushLIVE site for how to use the hard surface tools in ZBrush. Yeah, there's going to be lots of awesome tutorials on there for you guys. Definitely check out some of the past live streams as well. I guarantee there's someone that's been doing some cool stuff with it, with the Z Modeler tool. Goofy is looking so high, it's amazing. Thank you. I will definitely take that as a compliment. I don't think there's any other way to take that. Goofy does look very high. Ooh, stupid selection brush. Let me add some maybe rotation here. This might help. It's so hard to like balance all these things at once when a design is pushed really hard like this. Cater Doodle, I think I'm saying that right. I recognize your name from somewhere, so I think maybe you've been to one of my streams before, or maybe I remember your name from last stream. Says, hi Ben, I'm not sure if you mentioned this already, but do you use any custom brushes? If so, where would you recommend getting them from? I do use custom brushes, and you can get them from my Gumroad, which of course is just Google Gumroad Follygon and you'll probably find it. Or gumroad.com/Follygon. I have my custom brushes and materials on there. If you're new to ZBrush though, I recommend just using the standard brushes that come with ZBrush, and then later down the road, you know, make some of your own. I mean, it's really up to you. I don't use a lot of brushes. Most of my brushes are just heavy variations of brushes that already existed in ZBrush to make working with them a lot easier for my workflow. Then I have some stuff like my custom brushes that I've made. I've added a bunch of stuff to the IMM primitive brush for like creating perfect cubes and cylinders in a point sphere. A point sphere is a specific piece of geometry where the vertice is where it has really strong poles. I like to use those for eyes, so I use that. My Sharp Soft Edge brush is kind of like a damn standard brush, but a lot softer, obviously based on the name. And the alpha used is different. I mean, I think you can get the same results with other brushes, but you know, with some obviously like tweaking and stuff. I don't really know anybody that uses like a ton of brushes in ZBrush. Pretty much the way I work is if I'm working on a project and I need something really specific, I will make it, or if I've made something similar in the past, I'll just like go back into my library and find something that I can reuse. Or tweak and then reuse. How's that angle looking? We're getting that silhouette read a lot better now. I think that's a lot better. I'm gonna tweak this neck a little bit. I want that to fall in the middle there. Cool. Cool. Let's go back. For heavy hard surface work, check out Mike Pavlovich's videos. Absolutely. Mike's got so many videos of everything in ZBrush. I have a bunch of tutorials on my YouTube channel as well, but not nearly as many as Mikey Boy. Thank you so much. Your work is wonderful. Keep it up. Thank you. Ben, do you ever use Sculptress Pro mode? Nope, I sure don't. But I kind of want to play around with it. I initially dismissed it as something that I would never use, but I think it's just because I haven't put enough time into it, and I feel like if I actually played around with it some more, I could probably find a place where I could fit it into my workflow. I really wish it worked with brushes that use backface masking. It does not though, which is unfortunate. I think in an earlier build, I remember reading somewhere on the ZBrush forums that it did work with backface masking, but there were just too many situations that messed with, that would cause backface masking to cause Sculptress Pro to fail and crash. So they ended up not including it. So maybe in the next version they'll get all the bugs worked out. It might just be too many like rare case situations where that would cause it to crash and it'll never happen, but I would love it if it could. But maybe when I'm working on something like this, maybe I could use Sculptress Pro to some extent. Like, let's delete. I won't be able to turn it on just because of my brushes that I'm using all have backface masking on. You know, maybe there's some areas where I could find a good fit for it. I don't know. Like I said, I'd like to play with it a little bit more before I completely dismiss it. Alright, I think a lot of these little tweaks to the face have helped. I think there's still a lot more character going on here in 2D than what we have in our 3D character, our concept, our sculpt, I should say. But I think we're in a pretty good place. And I think that's going to be... Ooh, let's change that material. I think that's going to be a good place for us to stop for the day. I've gone long over when I was supposed to stop, so I think we should bounce on out of here. There's nobody else streaming for the rest of the day until tomorrow. The next person streaming, I believe, is Ashley. Let's refresh just to make sure that's up to date. Ashley Adams is sculpting tomorrow at 5 p.m. PST, doing some cool creature and concept sculpting. ZBrush Summit's coming up, guys. If you guys are going to that, or if you're not, you can still watch it online. There's going to be a lot of the events recorded and put online for the people that can't make it, such as myself. I won't be there, unfortunately. I would love to go. I just won't have the ability or time this year. So maybe next year, we'll see. Make it out if I can. But yeah, this is our good old Goober boy where we're at. We'll turn on live boolean. He's getting there. We got the body now. There's still quite a bit more work that we need to do, but we're getting a lot. We're starting to get a lot of the character of the concept in here now. I'm liking it a lot. A lot more than, you know, just a head like we had on our first stream. But that's looking good. Let's save that out. And we'll do more to him in our next stream. Like I said, I'm going to be... Ooh, almost saved that over something really bad. That would have been terrible. I would have lost a lot of work. We're going to be, or I'm going to be streaming on my YouTube channel tomorrow working on this guy some more. So if you guys want to come and hang out, I would greatly appreciate it. so I don't have to talk to myself the whole time. Airman CS is saying, do you have your own Twitch? I don't have my own Twitch. I stream on my YouTube channel. I do have my own Twitch account, but I don't stream on it nearly as much as I stream on my YouTube channel, which is just YouTube. Just type in Follygon or Google Follygon. You'll definitely find it. So if you guys want to see some more of my stuff, definitely go check that out. Or if you're interested in a bunch of free tutorials and stuff like that, I have a bunch of sculpts, free tutorials, fun memes, not really, but yeah, free stuff on there, and then paid stuff on my Gumroad page, just Gumroad/Follygon. Brand new course that I launched a couple weeks ago for sculpting appealing female faces in ZBrush. If that's something you guys are interested in, please check that out. Sculpting for toys, if you're interested in that. Sculpting mentorships, just like one-on-one stuff with myself and you. If you're interested in that, check it all out, guys. Go ahead and click subscribe or follow, whatever you need to do where you're watching here on the Pixo channel. Next stream, like I said, is tomorrow at 5 p.m. PST. Ashley Adams, she's going to be streaming. And I'll give one last shout out to Maddie C at Vertical Draws, the creator of this concept. Alright guys, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me while I get some sculpting done on good old Goobert boy here. Hope you guys had fun, and I hope I'll see some of you tomorrow on my YouTube channel, and in a week or two when I stream again on the Pixelogic channel here. So with all that said, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night. Bye now.